Village of Villa Park Board of Trustees Committee of the Whole meeting, July 10th, 2023. Clerk Konecki, call the roll, please.
Trustee Alfano, Trustee Cordova, Trustee Corkery.
Here.
Trustee Kozar.
Here.
Trustee Kumar. Trustee Patrick.
Here.
President Kazone.
Here. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, tonight our discussion item is on leasing vehicles. The village has a number of vehicles that, due to age, require more maintenance, are less fuel efficient, and are often hand-me-downs from the police, and therefore not ideally suited for their current use. For example, we have a Dodge Charger used for community development. With the size of the fleet and the current replacement trend, we hit a point where we may be unable at times to put people in a functioning vehicle as needed. Raymond Jess of Enterprise Fleet Management, Inc. will be at this meeting to discuss the program that they offer to local governments to lease vehicles. And Manager Harline, we can turn this over to Mr. Jess.
I'll turn it over just to give you an idea. Our fleet currently consists of 47 cars, including police and other police cars, SUVs, cruisers, that sort of thing. 28 small trucks, like small dump trucks, pickups, utility bodies, the F-350s, 450s, 250s, that sort of thing. And one 12-passenger bus. The remaining 18 vehicles in our fleet are heavy trucks or fire vehicles. We've been buying 3 police cars a year, maybe a large vehicles, and probably another truck or 2, maybe 3. This year was a little bit more than usual. And some years we have brought nothing but patrol cars. So I talked to some other villages, and they've been working successfully with leasing, particularly if they want to catch up on where their fleet has fallen behind. Burr Ridge, Oak Brook, Glendale Heights are a few of the cities, villages, and Ray Jess has some more examples. So that's basically the lead up. We're trying to find a way to catch up on our backlog of older vehicles. And I'll turn it over to Ray Jess.
Perfect. Thanks for the introduction. Appreciate everybody's time. Again, my name is Ray. I'm the Senior Account Executive with Enterprise Fleet Management. So I cover basically the state of Illinois, and my main responsibility, and I've been doing it for about 10 years now, is forming partnerships with public or private entities whom own and operate a fleet of vehicles. And I always like to start these conversations out, especially with a new crowd. Everybody thinks about leasing with their own personal experience. You go to the Ford dealer, you get a Ford Escape for 3 years, 36,000 miles, right? At the end of the term, you wash your hands. If there's over mileage or damage on it, they're going to charge you penalties and stuff like that. That is not the type of leasing that we do. These are open-ended municipal leases. Think of them much more like a finance or like you own the vehicle, and the lease itself is merely a funding mechanism, and I'll walk you through that in a little more detail, but it's great for cash flow, and the village still owns all the decision-making behind if you keep it, if you sell it, if you want to paint it purple. It's 100% up to you guys. They're your trucks. So let me open up the presentation, and I'll walk you guys through kind of the presentation, but if you have questions, don't hesitate to stop me throughout. I'm happy to address them as we go, and there will definitely be some time at the end. So I guess high level, Matt mentioned a handful. We work with a ton of municipalities. It's the fastest growing segment of our business. About 1 out of 4 of all my new partnerships come from the municipal space. Think of all the different entities out there, and it's all a lot of government, and it's really just a testament to the public-private partnership that we bring to the table. Before I go into too much detail about fleet, given this opportunity, I figured it'd be helpful to touch on a quick industry update. I had the chance to talk to the village president for a minute before we kicked this off, and you were mentioning how hard it is to find vehicles and the challenges for government entities. Well, this is what's going on. Just high level, Ford, for all businesses, has put everything on an allocation model. So you guys have a fleet ID that you order through. The most you can order is 10 F-150s. And this is true for Villa Park. It's also true for Pepper Construction, who needs 100 F-150s every single year. So they're very limited. This is true for the Rangers. You can only get 2. Limited quantity of SUVs. Super Duty, extremely limited. So those are your bigger trucks. Moving over to Chevy, and just a quick story for the 2023 model year. They had an open ordering model, except for their half-ton crew cab. So unlike Ford, they didn't allocate their purchases. The half-ton crew cab went on allocation. Everything else, they opened the ordering banks, and they filled in half a business day. By about noon the day they opened, they were calling the fleet management companies, the dealers, saying no more orders. They took in so much, they knew they couldn't build it. For 2024, they've moved to an all allocation model. Ram, they used to make this half-ton pickup truck called the Ram Classic. It's been discontinued. They're only offering their new body style for 2024. It is open ordering, which is great. The sooner you get your order in, the better chance it has to be built, and that's some of the consulting I've given here to the village. So anyway, all in all, it's really tough to get new vehicles. And when that happens, what does that do to the used vehicle market? Well, it drives it to the moon. You've probably seen in the news the cost of used vehicles. I'm not going to hammer too much on the chart, but it's looking at wholesale prices going back to 1995. And you can just see this dip here where my cursor is. That was 2008, right? The Great Recession, really robust recovery, kind of a flat market, and then when COVID hit, you could see how the market dropped suddenly and then how much it grew. And it's because government entities were flush with COVID dollars to spend, government money for vehicles and other things. Private companies had PPP money that they were looking to spend, and individuals were flush with unemployment cash that in many cases paid more than they were receiving at their jobs, and that led to this huge buying demand and all the inflation that we've seen, but it drove used vehicle prices up really high. So the vehicles in your fleet today, even the aged ones, are worth a significant amount of money compared to what they traditionally are. Last note, and this kind of went to what we were talking about before, and it's really hard to see on the screen, but you get the idea. The orange line is the average cost of new vehicles through dealers, and you can just see vehicles have gotten really expensive. It was $32,000 back in 2012, and now the average new vehicle through a dealer is almost $50,000, and you can see where the inflation took place. The blue line is incentives, and we were talking about how government used to have these huge incentives. Well, supply and demand, they've been reduced significantly, and you can kind of see that. That's the blue line. They're coming back a little bit. So how do we help our clients? Again, we're Enterprise Fleet Management. We're a sister company to Enterprise Rent-A-Car, National, Alamo. We own and operate 1.5 million of our own vehicles, and so Enterprise Fleet Management partners with municipal entities to help them basically with this wheel. It all starts with acquisition. So we're going to help you guys buy vehicles. We're very connected to the manufacturers. We talk to them all the time. We're going to be able to consult with you. Hey, here's what you can order and actually get built. Don't try and go this route, and we'll walk you through that. We'll actually do the ordering, and whether it be through a purchasing co-op, which are struggling right now, or we'll just go direct to the manufacturer and apply for government bid assistance, and it's very similar to the state bid, and we'll help you guys acquire the vehicles that you need. I should add, we're agnostic. We don't care. Ford, Chevy, Ram, International, we work with all of them. The funding side is really the key for a municipality. As Matt had mentioned, you guys are behind in your replacement. Vehicle costs have risen significantly. The capital that you need to kind of catch up would be challenging given your budget and where you guys want to spend your dollars. The way our funding works, we have clients who pay cash. You can do that. We could structure it as a finance where you just finance it over 4 years and own it at the end of the term. But what most of our municipal partners do is that open-ended municipal lease. Take a pickup truck that costs $40,000. You drive really low mileage. So we know after 5 years that 50,000 miles on it, that pickup truck's probably worth $25,000. So why have you pay $50,000 up cash or even finance $50,000 over the term? What we do is we write it to a reduced book value. In this example, let's just say it's $20,000. So now you're only financing 20 grand, right? The $40,000 truck, down to $20,000. So you have a much lower payment. You can do a lot more with the capital that you have. At the end of the term, you have 3 choices. You could write us a check for $20,000. You own the vehicle outright. You can keep making payments, paying down the balance until eventually you own the vehicle outright. Or perhaps I show you a more aggressive model that says, hey, that vehicle's 5 years old. You've got upcoming maintenance expenses. Let's sell it. We sell it for $25,000 because it's a 5-year-old truck with 25,000 miles on it. Enterprise would take the $20K you still owe, and Villa Park would get the $5,000 of equity, put into the new vehicle, build a park, whatever, those are your funds, however you want to handle it. And the decisions are always up to you, but we're going to consult with you and show you modeling around when is the most ideal time to replace those vehicles, and we'll get to that in a minute. We handle the license, title, registration, take a little pressure off the team administratively. We'll coordinate the aftermarket. So whatever Matt needs, as far as the equipment, either you guys can do the upfitting here, or we'll work with a local installer, get the vehicle upfit and deliver it road ready. But whatever equipment goes into it, the types of plows, that's all up to you guys. We've got a good maintenance program going here in Villa Park. We do offer those. That's not part of our proposal. You guys have on-site fuel. Continue to do that. You fuel the vehicles just as you have been. Certainly cost effective. In the future, we also have accident and risk management programs we'd like to talk about. Telematics, GPS tracking, things that really help the fleet, and driver safety programs. None of those things in yellow are included right now. You're really just looking at the core acquisition, the funding, and then the big piece on the back end is the resale. So I've talked about this a little bit today. You guys really run your fleet for a long time. And you can continue to do that and work with us. But what we're going to show you is that because you buy vehicles so well and the mileage you drive, that you could reduce the age of your fleet, cycle them a little bit sooner. We'll sell the vehicles for you, recoup that equity, and you had the model. I don't know if you went through the synopsis, but it's going to save Villa Park money, and a decent chunk of it over the next decade. Before I show you kind of your example, let me see if I can zoom in. There we go. So this is age data, but I threw this in here on purpose because the resale market today is so screwed up in a good way for you. But this really just shows, this is Kenosha School District. It's just put together in a nice way. They have very similar vehicles to what Villa Park runs, similar mileage. So travel back in time to 2011. If you bought a Chevy Silverado 4x4 regular cab work truck, the vehicle, the capitalized cost would cost about 26 grand. It's about double now, just to give you some idea. But so go back 2011, you buy a truck for 26,000. You drive it for 5 years. That's what months in service, 5 years and 3 months. At the end, it had 15,000 miles on it. We sold that vehicle for $17,500. And this is a traditional model. So it went from $25,900, we sold it for $17,500. If you divide that by the 63 months, that vehicle only lost $135 in depreciation each month. I mean, you can't rent a car, you can't rent anything for $130 a month. Not to mention there was no maintenance, no brakes, no tire. Everything's under warranty. You go down to 3,500 chassis with a little dump body on it. 5 years, 5 months. Again, you bought it for $35,000. We sold it 5 years later for 28 grand. That vehicle cost $112. You guys don't pay sales tax, and you have incredible buying power. We're excellent at selling vehicles at the most cost-effective time. That's what the whole of our business, right? We buy them, we run them at the most cost-effective time. We basically utilize our knowledge and help you guys run the most cost. And you can see the vehicles, but it add $112 a month in depreciation for a new fleet. Everything's more expensive. Results of that, but it gives you an idea, kind of stuff. I'll pause a second. Our questions so far.
One cars for like our first responders when you incredibly mileage cars and for constant turnover.
Yeah. in officer safety. If you can get rid of those vehicles, we'll sell it at like year 4, 80, 90,000 miles, and get you into just a brand new squad, and you just maintain that cycle. There's a good market for those used vehicles. And then rather than passing it down where you then have I think the example was a Dodge Charger that gets 14 miles per gallon being used as a community development vehicle, we just get them like a Ford Escape or a hybrid, something that's more appropriate. So, and we have plenty of data to show you why that's the cycle.
It also takes a little bit of time to outfit those cars with the equipment and things such as that nature. Is that taken into consideration with the time frame in which we push those vehicles out of service and before we get those new ones in?
Yeah, so we can do it 2 ways. I think that our preferred way is to deliver you a vehicle that's road ready. So we would use a local upfitter rather than you doing the upfits in-house. I understand there's value to you guys doing it as well, so you can do it yourself. And yeah, it does take some time. So that's why we recommend outsourcing it, but it's totally up to the village how, they handle that.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Right now, we're in a really high resale. Say in a couple of years, prices go down on that. Obviously, these cases won't work, and so say the vehicle's only worth $10,000 when we're done, we owe $20,000,
Sure.
and we sell it. We end up having to just have to pay that out of pocket then?
So it's a tricky question. You guys will never be in that position the way we're depreciating the vehicles. To your point, yeah, if you had negative equity, yes, you would owe on the vehicle. We're pretty conservative as a company, so the depreciation structure, and I'll show you a better example in a minute, that we've recommended, you won't be in that position. The second piece, what was the first half of your question? So you want to know if you'd have to pay the negative equity.
Yeah, basically, it would be.
So
it would
there's
be
also
like if you.
that was the second part of my answer. There's also a non-appropriations clause out there. So if you ever found a vehicle that you were like, wow, I don't know, this electric vehicle that we bought, and now the market for those, everyone wants, hybrids or something like that, you can just trade in the keys and walk away from it. So, and we're protected because you'll never be in a negative equity position, but you can just get out of it.
Thanks.
In the contract.
So does that sort of get
Turning
blended
over there.
in with the rest of the?
I'm sorry?
That would get blended in with the rest of the fleet, basically, if there was negative equity?
There literally won't, you would literally, if that were to happen, you would just issue the non-appropriations clause.
Oh, okay.
Why have negative equity? Just drop the keys off and call it a day, and we deal with it. And we can offer that for government entities. One, I believe it's required because of how your budgets work.
Right.
But 2, you won't be in that position.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit about your fleet. This is the whole thing. You had some data broken down, light duty, medium duty, and the numbers are somewhat alarming. 67 vehicles, 9.5 years is the average age. You do about 10,000 miles. You buy about 6 vehicles per year on average, looking at your 5-year purchase history, which leads you to have about an 11-year holding period. So it takes you, and that's with different vehicle blends, but 11 years to kind of cycle through the whole thing. And you look down here, and you can just see that you've got a large grouping of vehicles that are older than 2013, and I don't have it all memorized, but there's a breakdown in that synopsis. A lot of those aged vehicles don't have standard safety features, backup cameras, things that you want for your community, and so by having a newer, leaner fleet, you're going to upgrade the safety profile as well. I'm not going to hammer too much on this. This is the breakdown of our recommended replacement schedule. So this is just purely based off the data. It doesn't have intimate knowledge about the fleet that like Matt might have or understand the board's, goals of going green. And so it's purely a data-driven model, and it shows, based on our interpretation of your fleet, you guys should be replacing about 35 vehicles here this first year. Those are all at or past their useful life. And it drills down from there to basically get your fleet caught up over the next 5 years. When we take your fleet and those inputs into our model, this is essentially what we're, oh man, it's hard for you guys to see that. We're going to take your 67 vehicle fleet that you're currently cycling at over 11 years. You're averaging about 22 cents per mile in maintenance. That's a blend of some third-party data on government entities across the country. It means you're spending about $1.83 a month. A lot of time, a lot of headaches for the shop, downtime, etc. And we're going to reduce that in this model, that cycle, from 11 years down to 4.37. Most vehicles, again, on our 5-year cycle that we're showing here, and the squad cars are a little more aggressive. It's going to reduce your maintenance to $56.80 a month. You can just understand that if most of your vehicles are newer and under warranty, the shop's going to have a lot less pressure on them. It's going to significantly come down. This line in yellow, this is kind of your baseline. This is what Villa Park is doing historically. You buy about 6 vehicles per year. The average spend on that is about $260,000. Obviously, you have like this minibus that was mentioned. That's a $100,000 vehicle. There's ranges in there, and you don't have to replace that as often. But you don't lease anything. Spend about $150K in maintenance, another $225 in fuel. So your overall average fleet budget is about $630,000. And so that's what we're going to compare to each year as we go through our recommendations. Now, I've worked with the staff. In a minute, I'll show you we have an updated plan that's a little more conservative than this. But this was kind of what our proposal was. And in time, you'll see how we'll get there. For the first year, it was the 35 oldest vehicles. They all have either 100,000 miles on them or are more than 10 years old. So really your old vehicles. You would then own 32. You'd have 35 on lease. And here's the big value here. To lease 35 new vehicles, right, it would cost you $315,000. You're used to spending $260 to only replace 6 vehicles. So it's a huge replacement for just a little bit more capital. We would sell your 35 oldest vehicles for you. They're worth about $155,000 combined, so you'd have that equity coming back to you. Maintenance would have a big drop from $150K to $95K. Again, you replaced your 35 oldest vehicles with brand new ones. Fuel would improve, and right out the gate, you could replace a large chunk of your fleet, and your budget would be $177,000 less than what it historically is. The next year, you got to add 6 more vehicles because that's what's due up on our replacement schedule. So now your own vehicle count goes down, your leased vehicle count goes up. You can see your lease payments climb from $315 to $368. Scroll down. The 6 vehicles we sold in the second year are worth $60,000. And you can see in this first year, the 35 vehicles are worth an average of only $4,000 because they're so old. But as we move this forward in subsequent years, that average climbs significantly because we're selling vehicles that actually have some decent value and we're catching them before you spend a ton of money on maintenance, repair, headaches, etc. So you get 6 more, your lease payments climb, maintenance drops a little, fuel drops a little, your total budget is still less than historically, not as much as that year 1. The next year, same thing, we add in 10 more, and eventually you can see in 2027, 5 years in, you become fully implemented. You no longer own any vehicles, all 67 are on lease, your lease payments climb, they're much higher than they have historically been. But the equity coming back starts to be really significant because we're starting to cycle through some of the original vehicles that we purchased for you that are now only 5 years old with 30, 40, 50,000 miles on them, and that's where they have kind of that sweet spot to replace. And again, we're going to evaluate this year over year. We're going to talk to you guys about your budget, your goals, new vehicles. This is a roadmap, but it's going to change as the industry adjusts, and we're going to make new recommendations based off the best available data. All told, we can implement this plan, which is pretty straightforward, how we step into it, and you guys would save just shy of $250,000 over the next 10 years while completely refreshing your fleet. And the huge downstream benefit to your shop is if they are not burdened by a ton of really old vehicles that they're doing maintenance on, they can focus more on preventative maintenance of your really expensive equipment, Vector trucks, fire equipment, police vehicles, and they can do the preventative maintenance, make sure that that equipment is running streamlined. And the half-ton pickup trucks, SUVs, you cycle those in and out of your fleet every 3, 4, 5 years as the market dictates. So And I know there's a ton on there. You guys can break it down. If you have questions, my email address, you can call me. Is there anything that you guys wanted me to kind of touch on right now? Keeping it fairly high level.
Anybody else have any questions?
So ultimately, in working with Matt and everybody else, and based on your budget, the proposal, Matt identified the 12 needs for replacement. 3 of the vehicles that we're replacing are in good shape. They're these ones in bold here, a couple police, and a Tahoe for the fire. They have considerable value today. We can look at them again next year. It's good to have an extra vehicle or 2, especially with some of the other aged vehicles in your fleet. So I zeroed out their value, but the rest of these vehicles, we would be doing 1-for-1 replacements. So you're gonna sell 9, get 12 new vehicles. There's $46,000 of equity from the vehicles we're selling. We charge a small fee of $400 for each vehicle that we sell. That's the selling fee. So you would get back about $42,000, and that's a pretty conservative sight unseen estimate. We typically beat these. And then down here, and this is where I mentioned, to the board, where I could show you kind of how why I know you won't be upside down. So just using like a police vehicle, the way I have this structured today, it's a $60,000 squad car. That's what they cost now to have fully upfit, ready to go. Your lease payment would be about $1,100. So you can do a lot with your capital. $1,300, $1,400 per year. I'm sorry, $14,000 per year. But at the end of the term, I have this structure where I wrote these down to 0. So you can get out of it early if you want to, and it'd be worth at least $15,000. That's not the best example because I wrote it to 0. Let's use this pickup truck. Tradesman, $2,500. We have it written down to like 10 grand, and it'll conservatively be worth 20,000. And that's not in today's jacked up resale market. That's projected out 5 years with everything normalized. So things would have to be really wild for a 5-year-old pickup truck not to be worth $10,000.
Great.
So anyway, in summary, you replace those 12 vehicles, you're getting 12 new vehicles, your total annual payment for that will be about $150,000 to replace those. And included in there is a $114,000 minibus that I'm told the village is in very much need to replace. So that's one of those like really expensive vehicles. And the way we structured that one, just so you guys know, I put it on an 84-month term, so I really stretched it out, financed it all the way down to 0. So you just do a 7-year finance, basically. You'll probably keep that one for a number of years past there. It just allows you to use your capital across more.
Great. Okay. I don't know if anyone from staff has any comments?
A couple of things just to make sure. In this, we are not looking at ambulances and fire trucks and then the large vehicles. So one of the reasons why I didn't want to go for 35 vehicles to start out with, although the model is, I believe in the model, we're going to have to buy occasionally some of these larger vehicles, and we got to make all that work. Now, we have been setting aside, trying to budget every year some money to go towards the purchase of fire vehicles. So that is kind of already in the budget. But the other public works vehicles are just whatever we can afford that year. So that's one of the reasons that and to get the 12 instead of the 35, I want to see the reality of the reduced maintenance costs to some extent, which, and so I don't want to jump in too fast. I mean, that's, I think, Ray makes a good argument for doing a lot in the short term, but I think the plan that we're trying to go forward with is sort of a, we'll see 15 vehicles in the fleet that are 3 that we're going to take from the police vehicles that are still pretty decent shape, and then the police fire, and then we're going to take 12 new vehicles. So that'll be 15 vehicles better than we have right now. So we're going to improve our fleet about 2.5 years worth in 1 year, and we'll see where we're at this time next year in terms of how many, if we want to go for 12, 15 or more vehicles in lease, and also get a better projection for some of those other vehicles and a replacement schedule for that, because we got some old dump trucks and some other things, and we need to make sure that we've got a plan that we don't get ourselves lease payments at such a high level that we can't buy other vehicles that we need.
Okay, anyone else have any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you. We appreciate it. Good. I think it's a very good way to get our fleet a little newer. I'm sure Director Gola would like to see that. Okay, we'll come to item 4, public comments. Do we have anyone that would like from the public? Okay, seeing none, can we have a motion to adjourn?
Did Trustee Patrick, I know you got a late email. Did you want to share that comment that you sent me, or is that just, I don't have an answer. I didn't get an answer prepared, but because
No, I think the presentation was sufficient enough for me
Okay.
to be able to reply back to some of the
Okay, cool, because I glanced at it as we were sitting up here. I didn't know if that answered. Good, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn. Trustee Corkery, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Trustee Alfano? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we will close, and then we will open our regular meeting at 7 o'clock.